If you're on YouTube right now, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes. And drop a like and a comment. Thank you. All right, so today we're here with Mr. Matt Talbert with the city of Sterlington and is the mayor. Matt was elected in 22, started his term in 23. You were a one-term city council person prior to being elected, 21 years managing a small business, and spent about 9 years in the National Guard. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Matt, let's start off talking about where'd you grow up?
So I was born right outside of Houston in Baytown, Texas, and at the age of 2, my family moved to Philadelphia, Mississippi, back to some family land, and my dad was working in my grandfather's construction company, and so we lived out there until 95, and we moved to Farmville. And my mom her family is originally from Minden, and so we moved to Farmville in 95, and I deployed to Afghanistan in 2004. Met a good friend overseas, and when we came back, I was looking for a house, and he lived in Sterlington, and we had looked at a couple houses, but he pointed to one right down the road from him, and it just kind of met all of our needs, so I moved to Sterlington in 2005.
So in 2005, Sterlington was much different then than what it is today.
A lot different.
And it seems like you're no stranger to living in a small town.
Right.
I don't know back then, was Sterlington even, I don't know how they rank cities, whether it be village, town, or city based on sizes, but probably back in the day, Sterlington was just like a one-street village.
Yeah, it was just a village. It actually grew out of, Energy built their first natural gas power plant there, built houses for their workers. That was in the 20s or 30s. Then in the 1950s, IMC came out there, Angus, as most people know it, and they built houses for their workers, and that was kind of the birth of Sterlington, and then it was incorporated in 1961.
I want to say, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong, back in the 70s, Sterlington was considered the natural gas capital of the world. More natural gas was coming out of the Sterlington area than anywhere else.
That's right. You had the Monroe gas field that was just pumping gas, like crazy.
I mean, you start looking at survey maps for the whole area. It's like a spider web of natural gas lines that run through that area. Well, let's back up a little bit. So talk to us about kind of growing up. Are you an only child, or you have siblings?
Yeah, I have a brother that's 11 months younger than me, and so it's almost like I had a twin brother. We almost the same age, enjoying the same things, so that was fun. We grew up out in the country, and good times. I really enjoyed that.
So when you graduated, what led you to go to go in the National Guard?
Well, I originally started out at NLU and enjoyed that, but I'm always into challenging myself, and my dad was in the military, my uncles, couple people throughout my family, and I just thought, I wanted to do that as well, to serve my country. I've always been into service and giving back. I mean, this country, our communities have given so much to us, and I just think you ought to give back. And so that kind of led me down that path.
Now, did you ever deploy with National Guard?
I did. I deployed in 2004 to Afghanistan, spent a year over there, and then really got to see the world. I got to go to Germany and some other places, so just a great experience. Looking back on it, I think most veterans would agree. I don't know that you fully appreciate it in that moment, but the longer you are removed, you look back on those memories, and they're just, the challenges and things like that. It grows you into who you are today.
What other stuff did you get involved in? Did you get deployed with any of the hurricanes that we had here in Louisiana?
Yeah. My first hurricane was Hurricane Lily. And then after that, we worked a forest fire, but I did Katrina and Rita, Ike and Gustav, all of those. So when we came back from Afghanistan, we got back in, I think, June. And then August, we found ourselves in New Orleans for about 6 months with Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, it was a disaster.
It was. And, I had a couple of injuries I was dealing with and things like that. Just starting a new family, and we were seeing pretty rapid deployments for not only overseas duty, but in-state duty. And I just kind of had to sit down and make up my mind, hey, do I want to stay in this, or is it time for me to get out? And ultimately, I sat down on a piece of paper and I wrote down a list of every reason to stay in and every reason to get out. And, the numbers stacked up on the get out side.
Yeah,
And
the old pros and cons
that's
list.
right. Looking back on it, look, I think every person like myself that didn't go to 20 years would say, man, I wish I was still there. But there were opportunities outside of there that.
I mean, there's a season for everything in life. And, I can understand that it's not for everybody that, it seems to me, through everything I've read about you and see in the public life that family's important. And not to say it's not important for those who are still serving, but it's really hard to juggle a family, a career, and service at the same time.
It is very difficult. And look, the Guard is a great organization, the way they have everything set up. But, if you want to grow your career, you want to be involved in your family, it was tough then, and I'm sure it's still tough now. I still have some friends in, and they're constantly traveling. You've got to be ready for it, for sure.
So, looking at your background, 21 years working with a local small business, managing that company. In today's society, somebody working longer than 5 years in one job is something to be said, but 21 years working for the same individual. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I worked for Rick Breen and his family for 21 years. Just they're a part of my family now, and enjoyed that. There was a lot of challenges there. We set goals, and we met all those goals. And really, again, the opportunity presented itself to run for mayor. If not, I would still be there because I enjoyed the business. I understood the business, and nothing but great things during my time there. So,
the type of job that you had there, you're having to manage people, you're
Right.
having to manage customers.
Yes.
The old adage, the customer's always right, even when you don't think the customer's right.
That's
the
right.
Customer's still right
Yeah.
at that point, because no good can come out of arguing with a customer. What are some of the lessons that you learned during that time that helped prepare you for the public life?
I think working with those customers and those employees do that. You face challenges every day. And when you're in a leadership position, I used to joke with those guys all the time. They would ask me a question and I'd say, well, let me go to the big book of magical answers. Well, there's not one.
Yeah.
So you have to make decisions on the fly, and those decisions affect you, your employees, your customers, maybe some folks you don't even know. And so I think that really prepared me for the work as mayor, because stuff hits you at a rapid pace and you have to be ready to respond to whatever comes up.
So at some point you started thinking public office, maybe something I want to try, and you ran for city council of Sterlington. What led you to that path in your life to where you said, I want to try government out? Walk us through that step, because it doesn't sound like you had any of those aspirations leading up to that point. You didn't come from a political family. What brought you to the decision in your life that I want to run for office?
Well, I think, again, I go back to I really enjoy serving people, and I thought of it less as getting in government, more in getting into public service. And many, many years ago, I had a great-great-grandfather that was sheriff of Webster Parish. And then just a few years ago, I had an uncle that was county judge in Arkansas. And so talking with my uncle, he really enjoyed serving the public. And so I started considering it at the time that he was in office. And I let a couple people talk me out of it early on. And so I missed a couple of chances to run for town council just because people say, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be involved in that. And so I didn't. I listened to everybody else instead of listening to myself. And so when the time came that I was going to run, I wasn't going to let anybody talk me out of it. I said, I really want to give back. I want to serve the community. And so I ran for council and was able to get on.
So I know that you helped me with the timelines here. Sterlington went through a rough patch when it came to town finances.
Yeah.
We probably have a lot of different opinions of what led to that point. It is what it is.
Right.
When you ran for council, Where was the town in that financial situation? Was it before, or is it during or after?
So it was right during. So the mayor at the time had resigned and went off into the public sector. There was a lot of questions being answered. Even while we were running for council, there was meetings at the state capitol about, hey, what's going on in Sterlington? And I tell people when I swore in on January the 1st, something like 57 days later, we were called to Baton Rouge in front of the Fiscal Review Committee.
And that's as a councilman, right?
As a councilman.
Okay.
And I can tell you that's not a committee that you want to stand in front of. You got the legislative auditor, you've got the attorney general, and the state treasurer on that board. And they ran Sterlington through the ringer and ultimately made the decision to appoint a fiscal administrator at that time. That was in February. We ultimately didn't get a fiscal administrator until August, just because those guys are hard to come by.
And what was the core problem that they identified?
It was the debt load. There was $21 million in debt in Sterlington, and just really no path forward for paying for it. I always say there was a roll of the dice, and had everything landed correctly, there wouldn't have never been a problem. But a few things didn't come through that were expected to come through, which just led to, how do you plan on paying for this debt? And there really wasn't an answer.
One of the biggest things was the sports complex, if I'm not mistaken, that helped drive a lot of that cost. What else was part of that? Was it infrastructure?
Mainly water infrastructure. The town was looking to create their own water system, and there was just millions of dollars sunk off into that endeavor that just never got off the ground.
So when the administrator got on board, August of that year, what year was that? Was it
that would have been 2019?
2019. What plan did you guys? Because it couldn't have been just administrator doing it on their own. It had to have been a collective effort. So what kind of plan did you guys put into place at that point to put Sterlington on the path where it is today?
We had looked at the debt. We had talked to several of the banks about restructuring. We had signed a deposit trust agreement before the administrator got there, where all of our funds went to a third party. They pulled out the amount that they needed to pay the notes and then sent us the excess. We had looked at passing an economic development district. It had failed, which had really kind of put us in a place where that was the one piece that we needed to kind of get everything together. When the administrator came in, they come in pretty tough. They're escorted by the legislative auditor, who says, hey, this person is now in charge of everything. You're in an advisory capacity. That's from the council, mayor, employees. But we were very blessed with a great administrator by the name of Junior Shelton. He was the first fiscal administrator that was a non-CPA. He was a former mayor of Central Louisiana. And after all the, what I call the heavy brass left, he brought us in and he said, hey, you guys live here, you work here, you know these people, you know what we need to do. So I'm going to rely heavily on y'all to help us get to where we need to go. And he did that.
How long did it take you guys to get your footing back?
About a year and a half.
Now, I don't know, and I don't need specific, just kind of paint a picture. From a city standpoint, the income comes from taxes. There's nobody just doling out money to you. It
Right.
comes from taxes, property tax and sales tax.
That's right.
Sales tax probably should produce more revenue than property taxes. Not a lot of property tax goes to the town of Sterlington.
Right.
And I think people think that you guys, these big property tax bills that they get coming in is like, man, I don't see why Sterlington's having problems, because, I'm paying so much into it, but you only get a small little piece of property tax, right?
Yeah, very, very small. And I get that call quite often about property taxes, and they are high. There's some misinformation floating out there that we're the highest. We're not. We're not even the highest when you combine everything. But it's a very small number we get. It's mainly sales taxes, and then we have to go through a process where we have a group that comes in and does a rate study on our sewer. They came in and they gave us a number and said, look, if you're not charging this, you're going to be in trouble. Because we also had DEQ loans, and DEQ says that you must beat a debt ratio percentage. Their number came out, if I remember correctly, it was about $71. We felt like we could slide it in at 68 and make it happen, and we've been able to do that. We haven't got all the debt paid off at this point, but we're down to about, I was talking with our CPA the other day, we're down to about 11 million now.
And that's water and sewer is not a luxury that people like to talk about or brag about. Oh, we got, the best sewer lines are out there. I mean, if you don't see it, you don't recognize it.
That's right.
But from a cost perspective within a city or any municipality, if you're not constantly reinvesting back in those systems, you reach a point to where you're at catastrophic failure, and then the cost is so great. What are you going to do at that point? So I've heard many mayors talk before that one of the toughest sales that they have is trying to get people to understand the cost that really goes into water and sewer. If you're not constantly reinvesting in it, we're going to get behind.
That's right. I talked to somebody the other day, and I explained it to them like this. We had to buy a crane to go on the side of our truck to lift sewer pumps out of the manholes. That crane's $20,000. It would take you 124 years at your sewer rate just to pay for that crane.
Yeah.
So everything, when you start talking sewer and water, you're talking big money. Yeah. Everything we do costs just, and I don't think it should, but it does. So
in real estate, oftentimes we use that, the cost starts at the dirt and then we start going from there. But in actuality, the cost starts with the utilities available.
That's right.
And I think you can agree with that as well, because any type of development, whether it be residential, whether it be commercial, if you don't have the infrastructure to support it, that land's not worth anything.
That's right.
As far as development purposes. So, and I know that there's within the past year, you guys are doing some major infrastructure for a new development happening in Sterlington.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the part of the what we had to do when we came in, we're using the sewer rates, the money we take in, to pay for the sewer system. That pays all of the work we do, the guys that do the work, and it pays the debt. So there's not a lot of money left over for new infrastructure. So we have to go out and we have to look for grants and things like that. And we've been very successful. We've knocked out, I think now we're in our third or fourth DRA grant. We've got some money from the state to put in this infrastructure. But if you have a landowner over here that's got a beautiful piece of property and he wants to develop it, you start looking at what it costs to run sewer. And we've looked at some of those. Like, I know the landowner needs sewer, but it's $2 million to get sewer over there. Well, nobody has $2 million laying around. So we have to go out and get grants for that to help grow our town.
So at some point going through, or before I jump into that, what are some of the lessons that you learned as town council person through your growth?
Yeah, I think that one is you listen to your people. I don't always have the best ideas. I'm not always the smartest guy in the room, but there's going to be somebody there that's going to drop a tidbit of information on you, so take that back and use it. Also, one of the first things I learned was don't let your emotions drive you. It's easy when you have a person in your community in one ear telling you, hey, this is what you need to do. But if you'll go back to the data and let the data drive all that, then I think you'll be more successful. Because if you start letting your emotions drive you, you're going to do stuff that just ultimately is not going to make sense in the end.
Right. I think that's really good advice. I've can probably give many examples where I've had things go wrong in my dealings because emotions are not the best way. It's what we lean on a lot of times, but if you'll take that step back, there's going to be a better outcome most of the time. As you're going through being town council, Sterlington's going through a really rough time fiscally. The state had a microscope on you guys. The community had a microscope on you guys. Accusations flying left and right. We should have done this. We should have done that. A lot of armchair quarterbacking going on. But the reality is we got a problem. We got to figure it out. So while the administrator was there, you're in your first term. What changed within you that said that, I think I can be Mayor Sterlington. I think I have a path that's going to help bring Sterlington to more prosperous future.
Yeah, I think working with the fiscal administrator and some of our state elected officials, we thought that we had some ideas that would work, and as a council member, I wasn't always able to get those across the finish line just because of the way government's set up. And so I started meeting with different folks, different people in the community, and saying, hey, look, I think we can go forward from here, but if I'm the one to do it, then we need to have this conversation now. And so we felt like we had a good plan. We just wanted to know, do the people support this plan? Are the people on board? Are they really ready for change? Because look, for all of us, change is very hard. It was hard for me to make the decision. I'd given my life for 21 years to a company that I loved, and to walk away from that to set off on another venture was a difficult decision for me. And that decision didn't happen without talking to Rick and some of the guys that work for me and saying, hey, guys, this is something I'm thinking about. Do you support it? Because those guys meant a lot to me. And going into the community and saying, hey, look, this is our plan for our path forward. Does the community support it? And when we started getting that community support, we just thought it was the right time.
What vision did you paint for the community during that time? I mean, what was Matt's vision for Sterlington that was not realized yet?
I think, some of the things that I thought that we could do better or I could do better was the audits. We were about 5 years behind on audits, and that's a great story I'll tell you about here in a little while. I knew we needed to go after grant funding, and we weren't doing a good job at that. And when you look across the state, across the country, those that are doing the best are really aggressive on seeking grant funding and things like that. We wanted to make it easier to do business in Sterlington, and we've done that. We've kind of gotten rid of some of the red tape. Government moves slow, and a lot slower than what I'm used to moving, and so we wanted to take out some of those blockages that were slowing people down, and we felt like if we did all that, we mended some relationships and we created some new partnerships, I thought the sky was the limit. And looking in the rearview mirror, it seems to be working right now.
When you made that decision to throw your hat in the ring to run for mayor, how scary was that to say that I'm going to set this aside, this stability that I've had for 21 years, I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to go into something that is completely new to me, that there's it's not already set up as a winning system that's
right.
already in there.
Yeah.
It's got this huge magnifying glass on it from the community members, from state. How do you process to make that decision that it's now's the time to step out and make that happen? I'm going to leave my comfort. Okay. I'm going to leave and I don't know what thought process you had as far as, is this going to be an easy job or not? Because I'm going to give you my perspective of what it's like to be a mayor here in a minute. But how did you process that? Because to me, it's like night and day different from what you were doing for the past 20 some odd years. And right. It's a radical change. How did you and your family process that to finally pull the trigger? Because I feel like you have to run a political campaign to win, you've got to be all in to make it happen. I mean, people will see through, someone half-hearted trying to do something.
Right. It starts with a lot of prayer. I mean, you got to pray about it. And you have to know that you're called to do this. Now, I go back to over the years of people telling me, oh, you don't want to do this. But I still felt that calling that I should go serve the public. And so you start there, and then obviously you go to your family and you talk to them about it. And we had a lot of hard conversation about it. Hey, look, this is what this looks like, and if I'm going to do it, I'm going all in. We're going head first, all in, and we'll see what happens. And then again, talking to my employer, talking to friends, family, community members, and I just really felt like the time was right.
I can't remember who your opponent was when you were running for mayor, but I do remember it was a tight race. It
was.
wasn't an easy win that, you're a shoe-in to make it happen. You
That's
had to
right.
get out and work and hustle to make this thing happen.
Yeah, it's I say this to a lot of young people. We have a mayor's youth council, and I tell them regularly, number one, if you want to be involved in something, don't let anybody talk you out of it. Go do it. That opportunity is available for anyone, whether you're good at it or not. So if you want to do it, go give it a shot. But you just have to make the decision and run with it. In my opinion, in government politics, there's a lot of negativity out there. It's easy when you're in your comfortable place where I was at to just kind of coast. But the growth really happens in those challenges. And so I knew this would be a challenge. I knew I wanted to take on this challenge, and I knew it would make me grow. And my hope was that it would make Sterlington grow.
So I'll give you my perspective on mayors here locally. I'm fairly active in the community and get to see you at a lot of different events with the other mayors. And first thing I want to say is that from appearance standpoint, Monroe, West Monroe, Sterlington, Richwood gives the appearance that there is unity amongst leadership, that leadership is working together for the greater good. Is that a perception or is that reality?
No, that's a reality, and it needs to be that way. Nothing we can accomplish so much more when we work together, and so like Mayor Ellis and I often talk, and we want to complement each other, not compete against each other. We both have jobs to do, and that is to take care of our communities first. And then we need to take care of our parish after that. And then we need to take care of the Northeast region after that. And I've said this several times, and Mayor Brown alludes to it regularly. Monroe's like the big brother for us, and West Monroe's like the big sister, and me and Richwood, we're just like twin brothers, and but we are like one big family. Monroe, West Monroe, they have resources that we're just not big enough to have. But they've been so kind to open their doors and say, hey, if you need something, call us. We may be able to help.
The other perspective that I have is that you can't run for this type of political office if it's about the money. The amount of time I see you guys invest in our community. We were talking earlier about, the service and the guard, sometimes there's just not enough time for everything.
Right.
But you leave the guard, you leave a business to go to where you're operating a city. I'm not saying you're working 24/7, but you ain't working 9 to 5.
That's right.
There's a lot of time that's invested within. I see it with all of our mayors here locally, and that's one of the things that really it makes me feel proud of the community that we live in because you guys portray such a united front within the community. It inspires me to be able to bring people like you in to be able to spotlight on what you guys are doing. But that time commitment, did you expect it to be as much as it is?
I did, and I expected to give as much time as it took. I'm a workaholic. I went into work yesterday. I went down to New Orleans, watched Sterlington play, watched Ouachita play, got back, and I went into work because I knew there were some things that had to be done. I've never been one to worry about what time is on that clock. If I've got work to do, we're going to knock it out. And if I got to be there early or stay late, that doesn't bother me. When it comes to the money, money's important, okay? We got to survive out here. But one of the most profound statements came from an old pastor of mine named Chad Merrill, and he said,
Remember Chad?
Yeah, everything that you own is one day closer to the junkyard. Well, if you'll walk around and look at all the stuff you got and just think, man, that's one day closer to the junkyard, you'll realize all that stuff's really not that important.
When you became mayor, so you've been in this is you're going on your fourth year.
That's right.
What are some of the accomplishments that you can look back on and be able to say that here's some things that I know it takes a team to make it happen, but that team has to have a leader to engage people and push things through. But as a team, what are some of the things that you guys have accomplished over the past 3 years that you'd want people to know about?
Well, you're right. It does take a team, and as the mayor, we all get a lot of credit. But if it wasn't for those people that are beside us, we could never make it happen. Our job is to cast the vision, and then have people that buy into that and go out and make it happen. So that's the first thing. Is it takes a good team. I would say if I had to put my finger on one of the proudest accomplishments was getting the audits caught up. So we were on the non-compliance list, which made us ineligible for grant funding through the state or federal government. And so I had Michael Eccles set me up a meeting with the legislative auditor. And so I rode down with our CPA. We met in his office, and we talked about the audits that were behind. And so the whole conversation, I said, give me 2 years and I can knock these audits out. Just give me 2 years. I said, if you'll take me off the non-compliance list and give me that's all I'm asking from you. And so as I was leaving that office, he patted me on the back and he said, well, good luck to you. I'll see you in 4 years. And I said, for what? He said, well, it's going to take you 4 years to get these audits done. I have a letter in my desk right now from the legislative auditor saying, this is unbelievable. We've never seen anything like it before. But we came back, we got with our audit firm. We ended up going with a new audit firm, and we just said, look, this is what you got to do if you want these audits. And they were up to the challenge. We were up to the challenge. And I said, don't ever wait on us for paperwork. If you ask for it and you don't get it, call me. But they never had to call me. Our people took care of it, so we were able to knock that out. Create and Keep Sterlington Beautiful. Councilwoman Erica Hughes was a big proponent for that. And I said, Erica, we can't do it on our own. And she said, I'll lead it if you'll help. And so she went out and created Keep Sterlington Beautiful and got that going, and it's now a recognized affiliate through Keep Louisiana Beautiful. We resurrected the Chamber of Commerce through a partnership with the Monroe Chamber, and we have the Sterlington Business Alliance. We have monthly meetings, bring in those businesses, tell them what's going on in the town, listen to their concerns, bring in speakers for them to hear. And the Mayor's Youth Council is another one. I really wanted to do that for quite a while. I couldn't get it off the ground, but Leslie at the assessor's office, or clerk's office rather, she helped me get it started. We got a great group of kids this year.
And I think that's great, by the way. I don't know if the city of Monroe does. I know West Monroe does the youth council. Being able to see those young people get engaged into having an understanding that your water just doesn't turn on magically. There's things that have to go into it. Where streets don't get fixed magically, there's things that have to go into it. But seeing the kids get involved at an early age to start understanding how it goes, I think it's brilliant you guys have it up and running.
Look, these kids will shock you. So just last week we had former Congressman Rodney Alexander in speaking with them. And so they all had questions for him. And one of the students said, can you explain to me how lowering the corporate tax helps everyday America? Well, this is coming from a high school student. So those kids will impress you with how involved they are, how knowledgeable they are. They're engaged in that. But just other things, we've knocked out a lot of projects at the sports complex. We've really ramped up our sewer department, got them equipment that they needed. Like I said earlier, we got rid of some of the red tape in our permitting and processing through developments. And that's why I think we see a lot of development come our way. Is just one of the reasons is we've gotten rid of a lot of the red tape, so it makes it easier to do business in town.
So you're saying Sterlington is open for business?
We're open. We're ready.
To paint a picture for people who are not very familiar, with Sterlington. When I was a kid growing up, Sterlington was Highway 2, and it was one strip. You passed cotton fields, and then you got into town, and then you hit the bridge, and that was it. You had Entergy power plant there, and then you had Angus chemical plant sitting over there, and that's all Sterlington was. And then you had the area called the Village.
That's right.
But today, Sterlington is much different. Today, the community refers to Sterlington in a larger footprint than what Sterlington actually is, because they're basing on kind of what the school zone is for Sterlington. Well, paint a picture of what Sterlington actually is today. And then I would like to talk about what your vision for the future of Sterlington is.
Yeah. So we actually go all the way down behind the old CenturyLink building. So we have egrets 2, 3, and 4. That's on the south end. And then north, we go all the way to the Gateway Church up there, which is almost to the parish line. And, east and west, again, we go to the river. And then we actually kind of reach off into Fairbanks just a little bit now.
Where do you see future growth? Is the town looking at opportunity to annex more property for growth? And if so, I don't want you to step on anybody's toes, but I mean, where would you see that growth happen, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so I do see it growing, and when it makes sense for us, again, I go back to using the numbers and the data. Obviously, you want your town to grow. So if you're over eager and you run out there and you're trying to push development, I think organic growth is the best and it's sustainable. So we don't want to push too fast because you'll just go faster than what you can keep up with,
and be in the same predicament that got you guys in financial trouble in the beginning.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, if it makes sense on paper, then we start looking at it, but. There's a lot of, you remember, like you just said, when you used to go through there, it was all cotton fields. Well, all that's open land now that developers are looking at. And so if, we expect more of those properties to annex in. We're going to, next Tuesday, we're going to annex a piece of property that for all intents and purposes, you would think it's in Sterlington because it's just there. Yeah. But it's really in the parish. But that now they need sewer. And so we have an ordinance that if you connect to our sewer, you have to annex in. More and more people are moving out that way. When you look at Monroe is almost landlocked at this point. And so for them to build their residence, they have to go vertical.
Yeah. And
so a lot of those people are coming to Sterlington. And I tell people, we're going to have people come to Sterlington. And it's when everything is hitting together. Look, we got a great school system. Our educators, administrators, our athletics are great out there, and that's a huge driver for economic development. And I could argue that it's probably the number one driver for economic development. If you have good schools, people will come.
I completely agree with you on that.
You need a safe community. Sterlington has had a long history of being a very safe place, very, very low numbers of violent crime. You need good infrastructure. So all these things working together, I think we're in a perfect spot to see continued growth there.
Now, from a growth on the residential side, we've had some big growth that's happened recently with a lot of multifamily that's gone up in, what is that, Legacy Park?
Yes.
120 some odd properties that were built, and I was talking with a developer a couple of months ago, and they're filling up just as fast as they can build them.
Yep.
At that point. We've got a new development of maybe 130 homes going in that a local regional builder is looking to come in and develop, and I think that's one of the biggest sewer infrastructure projects that y'all are working on to help bring that in. But that's a situation where it made sense for you guys to do something like that.
Yeah, we knew those people were coming. Look, this entire region is about to explode in growth, and with the meta projects and some of the other projects that are going on, I hear the conversation a lot. Well, it's out of town workers. Out of town workers become in town people.
They do.
And so if you can get them here and you can treat them right and they love where they live, they're not going anywhere else.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that, sure, there's going to be out of town people that leave, but it's going to take an awful lot to support what they just built. And we have new people coming in to replace those people.
That's right.
And then I think that, the growth that's going to expand beyond that, just because that big growth is here, that big facility is here, I think we're going to see more people fall in love with our area. I just read an article that I want to say it's either Bossier or Shreveport. They just declined a data center to be built in their area. We're open for business in Northeast Louisiana. Right. We welcome the growth, and I know there's a lot of fear with consuming too much of our resources, but I think that our local governments and our community partners have reassured us that our resources are plentiful here.
They are.
And we're scaling.
Yes.
We're building more to be able to support. So, I mean,
I look, at the core of it, I'm kind of a nerd and I love doing research. So we partner with Grodila to certify a site. We had a local landowner that was willing to put up this site. We were able to certify it. And so when we start looking at, I listen to everybody. And one of the biggest concerns that I've heard, especially with a lot of this growth going on, is that we're taking up ag land. And that's concerning to me. So I started doing some research. And number one, we have commodities that are sitting in warehouses now because we can't find buyers. And so I know our state senators, Stuart Cathy and Mike Strain, the ag commissioner, are in the UK right now talking to them about buying more commodities from us. And then you look back at the 2018 Farm Bill, and they have 28 million acres in the CRP program where they're paying farmers not to plant.
Yeah.
So I think we're fine as it comes to natural resources. I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. It's and I know that there was some pushback with the solar farm there in Sterlington. It's, aesthetically, it's not what we're used to seeing.
Right.
It doesn't. We much rather sometimes look at corn growing or cotton growing than these solar panels. But I think that some of that in moderation is appropriate for a community to look at. Now, I do think with the parish, I don't know if the moratorium is still on, of not looking at taking a closer look at future growth at that, consuming that, because we need land, for development for retail and other commercial or even residential. But I do think that some of that is a necessary part of the process.
It is, and you have to have a well-rounded community. When you look at your top businesses in the United States and really in the world, there's things that they're looking for, and it just so happens right now they're looking, can you provide renewable energy? And so if you're going to land one of those big guys, as we call them, you need that.
You need the diversity.
You do. You need the diversity. And I told people this, and I really believe this. You had a private landowner, a private company do a deal. The deal was done actually before I became mayor, but private property owners have rights.
Yeah.
And you have to be very careful when you ask the government to step on those rights, because then the lines get real blurry.
I agree. I mean, I believe in personal property rights, but it also brings us back into with the growth that you guys are seeing. Where were you guys with a planning and zoning when you were just on the city council versus where you guys are at today? Because the amount of growth y'all are seeing out there, I would have to assume y'all have had to staff that more or put a lot more thought into planning and zoning for Sterlington.
We did. So I'll tell you, when I first got on the council, we had a planning and zoning board, very, very knowledgeable board, but the buck stopped with them. They either approved you or disapproved you. Well, that's not how the state law has it set up. So we had to kind of redo that board and kind of get them into compliance. We have a great board now. What we're looking to do, and we're just kind of on the tip of the iceberg, is we're going to create a master plan out there. We didn't even have zoning maps, and so we needed zoning maps. We had some older infrastructure maps, but we're working on updating those. But you get that master plan, and I'll tell you another thing that I hear a lot. Well, we have enough apartments. So I went and I did all the research and said, hey, how many rental units should you have versus, single family homes and things like this? And so we're trying to make sure all that stuff matches in a master plan to bring that all together.
Well, speaking just on the, we have enough apartments. I'll tell you, we don't have enough apartments or multifamily in Northeast Louisiana. The up and coming generation, they're not all going to be homeowners.
That's right.
They want to be able to. Oh, they don't. Nobody writes checks anymore. They want that one payment.
Yeah.
They want that one payment to where someone's going to take care of the yard. If something breaks, they want someone to come take care of it. So I'm just going to send my one payment, and you take care of everything else. And there's a large generation, and I'd much rather see a community filled with apartments than I would necessarily rent houses dotted every other house in a neighborhood, because the quality of home ownership or pride of home ownership, can have some effect on the community. I'm not saying rental houses are bad, but if it's overpopulated an area,
Right.
and that's where multifamily comes in. And in the Sterlington area, the rapid growth of the multifamily, you're not having these developers putting together low budget multifamily.
That's right.
I mean, these are really high quality things. One of the developers telling me that he's got a gym that's going to be located for the people to come in and look at it. They're having garages that are installed, and that's new to us in this area. We haven't seen that before.
Right.
So we're having high quality things that are being built that I feel like are going to withstand the times of to where they're going to stay nice for quite some time the way they're building these. So I really like seeing that, and I do agree that you need some zoning in place to where you're not going to have, house, multifamily house.
Right.
Everything should have its place.
That's right.
But when the community says we have enough of that, we're still at a big deficit for housing.
Yeah, we are. And look, the numbers shocked me when I looked them up. I was thinking we're probably twice what we should have. Really, we're about 50% of what we should have. So, again, I think if you let the data drive your decisions and not your emotions, that would have been one of the places where I would have said we had enough, but the data said otherwise.
Let's talk about the hard decisions that come with being a mayor. We talked about the race was extremely tight when you ran. I don't know what the spread was, but let's just say it was close to 50-50. So you had half the people that saw a vision of this individual, half the people saw your vision. You're having as mayor to make decisions on a daily basis that a large part of the people may disagree with, but it's the right decision to make. How do you address or handle when you're having to make the tough decisions? How do you address the naysayers within the community? How do you try to get them on the bus with you?
I'm a big fan of transparency, and so every single month I make an end of the month video to talk about things that's happened in the community, that different stuff like that. That's really where I try to just put out all the information, and I think that's where some of your mistrust in government has come from over the years. Is people have just never talked. And so I love having those conversations with people and talking about, where we are, where we're going. If there's something that they don't like, finding out what is it that you don't like about it. We had a development a few years ago when I was on the council that we approved, and the neighborhood really showed up in opposition. And but I knew it was the right decision to make. And I couldn't vote against this development that was going in. But I would say now, 4 to 5 years later, the fears of that community have been settled because some of the stuff they thought would affect them has not. And so I think just reassuring them, giving them all the information you have, and just, trying to help them to understand the same things that you're seeing really makes a difference.
How do you have you found yourself in a place to where you had to make decisions that were contrary to what you thought you would end up doing?
Yeah, I think it's been that way several times. Again, if we're looking at, just like I said with the apartments, I believed we had enough. And so I sought out to figure out what's the right number. And then when I found it, I was like, well, I'm not right. Again, it's easy to make that emotional decision, that spur of the moment decision. But if you'll just take time, do the research, and say, hey, this is what the data shows. And there's even times that I may not agree with the decision I have to make. It's not what I would choose, but it's what's been presented to me.
Right.
It's legal, it's moral, it's ethical, it's safe. So there's no reason to not do it if that's the case.
When decisions come down, we know that tax base drives what you can do. Tax base is going to drive your growth,
right.
or grants, even though a grant is typically not reoccurring money. It's,
Right.
most time it's one-time spend type money.
That's right.
But revenue coming in allows you to be able to do more. So logic would say that if you're going to spend money and make investments, you want that to invest to have that revenue generator
Right.
to be able to offset it. So if I'm putting money into this, hopefully it's going to give me money back. But to be able to have a thriving town, you have to make investments in quality of life things
Yes.
that doesn't necessarily produce that tax base up front. Now,
Right.
you and I both know that over the long haul, there's so many branches off that quality of life that it's going to enhance that tax base. But in the now, when you're doing it, a lot of people don't understand that. Why are we spending this much money to revitalize this park? Why are we spending this much money at that sports complex because they need this new concrete for that? Why are we doing those things? Can you go into a little bit of what quality of life investments in a community, what that actually does for a community?
Yeah, when we look at, just take the sports complex, for example, you're talking a $10, $15 million investment. And there's people today that would be happy if I locked the gate and never went back out there. Well, you're throwing $10 to $15 million in the trash. So we knew we have to maintain this place. We have to take care of it. We have to grow it. And so we have to make investments. Same thing, we started doing 2 concerts a year out there. And, we haven't made our money back on them, but we've given people in the community things to do, ways for the community to come together. That quality of life, bringing the community together, letting them enjoy some downtime together, in my opinion, creates a stronger community. Look, if I don't go and wave at my neighbor and get to know my neighbor, we're not friends.
Right.
Same way, there's people all throughout our community that may not come together in their day-to-day walk of life, but when we put on these community events, they're going to see each other at the park and start talking and getting to know each other. It just creates a stronger community, in my opinion.
So one of the numbers that we found, I don't know if you supplied this or we found it, but spring and fall recreational ball, about 850 local kids participate in that.
That's right.
That's community.
It is.
That is. I can remember as a kid. I think it was Sterlington Rec Center that I played rec ball in.
Yeah.
They called me Flash out there, and it's not because I could run fast. Played rec ball until I really realized that Flash was not an endearing term for me. Like that wasn't for me. But so many great memories of being able growing up playing rec ball. And knowing that kids in that community that they go to school with, they get to see spring and fall when they're out there playing, because that place stays packed when it's open.
Look, it's unbelievable. If you'll go out there during rec ball season, you can't find a place to park. The lines at the concessions are long, but it does. It brings all those kids together. It brings those parents together. If you go out there, everybody's having a good time. Now there's some close calls and some tempers get high sometimes when it's a close game, but man, everybody's enjoying themselves out there, and those kids are getting to experience things that they may not otherwise get to experience without that. And so we have to host the tournaments that come in from out of town, and we host some great tournaments.
And those are revenue generators for the community, right?
They are.
So they're eating at your local restaurants.
Yep.
They're buying gas at your gas stations. They're buying snacks there. I know you don't have any hotels right now, but you got Airbnbs in the location. So those are revenue generators for the town.
That's right. When you, and I've done it, I've sat in the parking lots of our restaurants and convenience stores after a tournament and just watched, are these people stopping here? Because we know they're going to Monroe, West Monroe to stay the night. We hadn't been able to land a hotel, and I hope we do soon. I think the number of people that come in, even during the off season, would astonish some folks. I got some friends with Airbnbs, and they get rentals every night in Sterlington. But those tournaments that come in, those people are stopping at our convenience stores, at our restaurants. We've had them, hey, y'all have a grocery store? And they'll go to the grocery store. But no, that we bring those in. That's a big deal for our community to have those come in, leave those tax dollars there before they leave.
Now, you touched on schools, and I just kind of want to just press in just a little bit more. So, unlike Monroe City, Sterlington doesn't have city schools, so it's our
Right.
pair school system. And as a whole, we have a really good pair school system. We
do.
have great education in Northeast Louisiana. Are there things that we wish were a little bit better? I mean, nothing's perfect.
Right.
But to zero in the Sterlington area, they're pair schools that's in the Sterlington area. They're not inside the city limits. They're parish property.
Right.
If you looked at, so I believe that the middle school is the newest middle school that we have in Ouachita Parish. But if you looked at all three of those together, so the elementary, the middle school, and the high school together, if you grouped them into a pair of three for feeder schools, they're probably the three newest schools as a whole that we have anywhere else in the parish.
Right.
As a grouping. And anytime you have, something new, you've got a little bit better technology than the others have. And you guys are very fortunate to have that. But even though those schools are not in the city of Sterlington, your involvement in those schools in that community, when you walked in here, you just tell them you just got back from New Orleans because you went to their high school state football championship game. I mean, you're invested, even though all of those kids, a large portion of those kids, their families don't live inside the city limits of Sterlington, but you're invested in that community.
Yeah, every morning I get up and go to the elementary school and help in the drop-off line. The first year they asked me, they said, hey, the first couple of days of school, would you mind come helping us with drop-off? Because we know it's going to be busy. We've got new students. That means new parents dropping off. I done it for 2 days, and I asked them if I could stay because there's no better way to start your day than seeing those kids with those smiles on their faces, excited about being at school. And so I do that every day. And if those schools need something, I want to be there and do whatever I can to meet their need because they're a big part of our community.
Yeah.
I was talking with Ben Hackler when we were down at the Dome, and I don't know if this is true, but it seems to me like when you have a community school, a town, or a city school, there's a concentrated group of people that are bought into that school, as opposed to maybe a parish school where they're spread out a little bit further. And even though we are a parish school, I think the town is kind of the center and people come in. Our schools get great supports from the parents, and I think that's another reason why they're so successful.
Well, just seeing your involvement there, it's inspiring to see. And, I'm not saying our other officials are not, but just me knowing that it's not a city school, and a good portion of the parents that send their kids there don't live. They're not anybody that's going to vote you in or out of office. It's just, as a community member, it makes me proud knowing that you're in the community, investing in our education system, investing in our schools, without expecting anything in return from that. Education is a strong factor in driving a community. We have areas within Louisiana that are not thriving because, of the education system.
Right.
And I know our state is trying really hard, but we have some very impoverished areas within our state, and some of them are still struggling. But to know that we have what we have here in Ouachita Parish, we have a great school system, not perfect, but it's a great school system.
Right.
And we have good private schools available that are other good options that are thriving. So as you cast that vision for 2026, you'll be running for re-election. You had mentioned earlier. What is your vision moving forward? I'm not trying to give you an ad campaign here, but as someone who, let me back up a little bit. I'm coming from the place that I don't live in Sterlington. I will not be a constituent of yours.
Yeah.
But what happens in Sterlington affects West Monroe, affects Richwood, affects Ouachita Parish.
Yeah.
If somebody is on the vine dying, all of us get affected. So I have a vested interest in my community to make sure that I'm doing my part as a community member to make sure Richwood is thriving, Sterlington is thriving, Monroe, West Monroe, even our parish system is thriving. So what is that vision for 2026 when you run next? Are you trying to cast for Sterlington area?
Yeah, I think, still we're going to maintain our priority in taking care of this debt. And I believe another 4 years we could have it knocked out or very close to being completely knocked out. So that's always got to be our priority as long as we have that debt, is to continue to knock that out. From there, I would love to see some business and industry come in where we do have higher paying, career oriented jobs in Sterlington. And part of that was certifying that site. So now we're looking for somebody to build. Continue in our quality of life projects. We're building a playground out at the sports complex right now. We want to continue to do those kind of things for the people in our community to have a better quality of life. Again, we talked about the old village down there. That village infrastructure has been in the ground for 50 years and has gone almost untouched. So we need to go down there and really go through that system. And we've put in for the funding for that. And we'll see when it happens. But really just continue to take care of the people that live there and prepare ourselves for the future growth that we know is going to happen.
If there's one thing that you could ask of the community, because I don't, public-private partnerships are important to the success of any community. And if we are relying on our public officials to do everything for us, kind of in a really bad situation at that point.
Yeah.
What is if you could have one call out to the community, what would that one call out, the call to action for the community, what would you want that to be?
Get involved.
How?
Whether you're serving on a board, you're showing up to meetings, you're giving us ideas, and look, I'll take the compliments and the complaints because that's how we grow. If everybody told me every day I did a good job, then I wouldn't know what to work on next.
Right.
But continue to support your community, and look, if that's showing up to every ball game, that's what it means for you, then do it. Don't just sit back and watch everybody else do all the work. Get involved and be a part of the change that you want to see.
So if a community member comes up to you and said, Matt, I want to get engaged. I don't want to be a problem. I want to be a problem solver. I want to throw my name in. Can you help me get plugged in?
Absolutely. We had two people do that just recently, and through a series of events that happened, we needed two members on our P&Z and Planning and Zoning Board, and so one of the members had moved to another state, and so we needed to replace them. And then our board chair, David Bryant, passed away, and David was a very integral part of that board. I mean, I just can't tell you how much he did for that board. And so we couldn't replace him, but we needed somebody in that position. And just happened that two people at almost the same day come up and said, hey, we want to jump in and help. Do you have a place for us? And we had a place on that board. Keep Sterlington Beautiful.
I was fixing to hit on that.
Look, even if you don't get on the board, come to some of the events, help clean up your community. And if they just want to come to you and say, hey, Mayor, we want to, I got a group and we want to have a cleanup day in 3 Saturdays from now. Can you help us with some supplies to do that? That's right.
You'd be more than happy to do that.
Oh, yeah. We can make that happen. Look, thinking about rec ball, we always need coaches out there. I've done it before, and look, I'm not a coach, but those kids need people to show up in their lives. And so there's plenty of places for people to plug in, and even if that is not something that the town has to do, the schools have places you could plug in. Our entire community has places that you can get plugged in that what fits your talents.
Well, Mayor, I just want to tell you thank you for giving us the time to talk today. Is there anything else you want anybody to know about the town that we didn't cover?
No, I mean, look, again, I want to commend my staff. I have a great staff that get out there and make things happen. Come see us, come talk to us. And I think the overarching thing that I would leave is there's a lot of negativity toward public officials these days, but there's a lot of good ones. And go talk to them. They're real people from your community that are just wanting to serve your community. And so go talk to them. And if you want to serve, jump in and serve wherever you think you may fit, because there's people out there. I had a conversation with a guy this past weekend, and I said, "Man, you should do this." And he goes, "Oh no, I would never get involved in government or politics." And man, that's sad that we have people with that talent that are scared to get involved. So, get involved, be a part of the change that you want to see, and I think you'll be surprised at what you have to offer your community.
I think that's great that you said be a part of the change that you want to see. Too many times we sit on the sidelines and complain about the things that we don't have.
Yeah.
When in actuality, if you would just speak up and willing to roll your sleeves up, maybe we could have what you want.
That's right.
If you're willing to put a little bit of the work in. Mayor, you've been accessible to me. I feel like you're accessible to the community. Just for me, to you, thank your team for the hard work that I know that they're putting into it. We didn't talk about public safety, but for a small community that has its own police force, I think it's great to be able to have that response time that you guys have. You'll have an appointed police chief in now. There'll be someone running this coming year.
That's right.
For police, but you guys are doing some really cool things, and I love seeing the growth that y'all are having. So thanks for what you guys are doing. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.